Welcome to Tenbury High's virtual tour. So when you start your day at Tenbury High, you might walk up the drive to the main gate, or you may be driven in through Redgate Avenue and you'll go in through a different gate. So this will be the path you take. And as you see, you'll come to the same gate, and then you can walk up the stairs, and this will take you to the main hall. On your first day in September, this is where you'll come to have an assembly from Mrs. Dean, and there'll be an opportunity to meet up with some new Year 7s as well. So now we're going into the Orchard Suite. This will be the way you line up to buy your lunch and snacks at break time. So normally there'll be a lot of food here that you can pick and you can pay for at the till. So when we cross through to the stage, there's a little room here for the Year 11 hub, and this is where Mrs. Palethorpe will be based. And upstairs will take you to the Modern Foreign Languages. So if we're going to Mrs. Taylor's French and German room, you can see that we've got all the tables and desks, and we've got big windows. And on the other window, you can see a brilliant view of Tenbury Wells. Okay, and then across the landing is another French and German room. This is for Mrs. Pierce and Mrs. Lodo. So now we'll go back down the steps, back to the stage area, and that will bring us to the quest. The quest is used for careers and some geography lessons and some PE theory lessons for Year 10 and 11. Then we can go to the music room, and you need to go outside for that because it's in a porter cabin, which means that you can make lots of loud music and not distract any other pupils. You can see we've got keyboards there and some computers at the back to do ICT in music. So if we go back to where we came from, past the toilets and up the stairs, is going to bring us to the computer science room. This is where Mrs. Allen teaches computing and computer science. It's full of computers for you to use. Next door is Miss Taylor's room, and she teaches PE and health and social care in here. If we go back down the stairs, we'll enter Mrs. Harrison's catering and food technology room. So this is where you'll do your food technology lessons on rotation, and if you're an Aztec Gold, this is where you can find Mrs. Harrison as your Director of Learning. So if we leave Mrs. Harrison's room, go across the corridor, we come to Mrs. Wall's office, and she's the Vice Principal, and Mrs. Dean's office, and she's the Principal. Further down the corridor, you can see our DT display, and we come to the science rooms. This is Mr. House's science room, and if you're a Jade Warrior, he's your Director of Learning, so this is where you'll be able to find him. And then next door is room 6, and this is also another science lab full of gas taps and taps as well. So if we go up the corridor, up the ramp, you can see the view of how to get to the music room, and this is main reception. If we've gone further down the corridor, we've got toilets, and we come to the humanities rooms. So this is the history room, and this is the geography room. This is Mr. Hawkins' room. If you're a Red Marauder, this is where you'll find your Director of Learning. So there's some displays of some geography work that pupils have done. Across the corridor is Mrs. Millhouse's English and Maths room. And then just a little bit further up the corridor we come to Mrs. McConaughey's Science Lab. Opposite Mrs. McConaughey's Science Lab is the library. This is where you can find lots of books and some information about our reading challenges. You will do a reading lesson once every week, so you might be coming in here a lot to change your books. We've got a vast collection of books, and we've got some new ones coming in. So if we leave the library and go further up all the way to the end of this corridor, we come to Mrs. McEwen's Science Lab. Just opposite that is the conference room. This is normally used for staff meetings, but you might do some work in there as well. So now we're going to the new block, and you've got toilets, and this is the English corridor. So this is Mrs. Wright, our assistant principal's classroom. This is Mrs. Clee's English room, so you might do English or some drama in here. They don't normally look like this, but this is just for our social distancing in school. This is Miss Faulkner's classroom, and she teaches drama as well. And then at the end of the corridor is Mr. Mitchell's humanities room. And they all look the same inside. Opposite Mr. Mitchell is Mrs. Britton. She's our pastoral support officer, so she's someone that you can go and talk to if you've got any problems about anything. There's another office there. And then if we go through this door, we can go up the stairs, and this will bring us up to the maths corridor. So at the very end, this is Mrs. Price's classroom. She's our Senko. She's somebody else you can go and talk to if you have any problems. She teaches English. Next door is Mrs. Hillhouse, and she teaches maths. And then this is my classroom, and I teach maths. And this is where the lunch club will be with the SEN team. And then at the very end is Mrs. Mellings' maths classroom. They look the same as the ones downstairs, just with purple chairs. Here's a view of our field that you can see from the end of the corridor. Opposite the maths classrooms is the SEN team main area. So this is where you might come to do study sessions. This is where you'll find the TAs when they're not in a classroom, and they're people that you can come and talk to about any problems you have. We even have a view of the courtyard. Next door to the SEN team is Mrs. Prowse's office. So if she's not in a classroom, she might be in there. If we go back down the stairs and go out through the exit, it brings us out onto the courtyard where you might go for break and lunch. And you can see we've got some equipment there for you to use at lunch. And then in this room is the textiles room. So you would use this when you're doing some textiles work or some artwork with Mrs. Kearns, because it connects to the art room, which is where you'll do most of your art lessons. So Mrs. Kearns works in here, and you can see it's full of lots of artwork. We leave the art room, it brings us down the steps to the sports centre. If you're a blue barbarian, Mr. Morris will be spending his time here. That's the courts. And then through the gate brings us to the field. This is open in the summer. We can come back down, so this is where you'll line up if there's a fire drill, but you can use it at break and lunch times as well. And all the way at the other end of that courtyard brings us to a porter cabin, and this is used for specialist drama when the hall's in use. Coming back down the stairs brings us back to a familiar place. So this is where you come to the hall, but on the other side brings you to the Resistant Materials DT room. This is Mr. Shepherd's room, and this is where you'll do theory work or work on a computer. Here's some work that some other pupils have done. And then we've got the workroom where you'll do your practical DT work, and you'll make jitterbugs in year 7 and lots of other things while you're at Tenbury High. This area is for Mr. Shepherd only, or Mrs. Elliott if she's helping. Okay, if we leave this room, that brings the tour to an end. So we'll come back through Mr. Shepherd's main classroom, back through the same door we came in, and we can walk all the way back down the steps, all the way back to the drive. And that is the tour. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, please email us, and we look forward to meeting you in September.